Hello, everyone, and welcome to Edge Talk Radio. My name is Angela Zabel. That's me. And today we're going to be talking about when your authenticity leads the way with author Carolyn Brouillard from Tennessee. And I can't wait to get into this one. So, who am I? I have been connected to spirit, working with a team in the non-physical my entire life, sharing messages from a multitude of realms with people. I'm a teacher, coach, medium, radio show host, writer, retreat host, gallery reader, doing speaking engagements, offering guidance, mediumship, intuition, doing online private and group sessions, classes, and the Amplified Universe monthly membership group. This is growing our connection to us, our world, all that is around us, and our role in it, sharing knowledge and working with others throughout the world. And you could find me on pretty much all the social media aspects out there. The biggest thing, go to my website, angelazabel.com. And today, I'm going to try to get this centered in here. Today, we are here with Edge Magazine. It is a leading events and media resource dedicated to all aspects of holistic living, health, wellness, and the mysteries beyond, sharing information, wisdom, and resources, committed and promoting businesses, organizations, and individuals who support our collective journey to wholeness and balance. Currently distributed in 30 states and Canada, with over 17,000 magazines per printing, and a vibrant online magazine with over 42,000 people reach per month. Have the magazine shipped to your door. Stay up to date with the newsletter, become a drop spot, and check out Kelly Wagner on the Being Curious show. And you can find out more about Edge Magazine at edgemagazine.net. And today we are here with Carolyn Brouillard. She has spent 3 decades exploring consciousness and the art of authentic living. Her expertise is forged in the intersection of extremes, radical rebellion, corporate leaderships, and the hard-won freedom of self-sovereignty. By distilling her insights into a practical framework for personal transformation, Carolyn helps others bring inner truth into lived reality. She's the author of Untamed Truths, Reclaiming Self-Sovereignty, and the founder of Untamed Press, which is dedicated to bold voices whose wisdom, courage, and authentic presence offer revolutionary perspectives that transform the human experience. Carolyn lives in the Blue Ridge Mountains, where she enjoys hiking, exploring back roads, and gathering around the campfire. You can find out more about Carolyn at YourUntamedTruths.com, and I'll spell that for people who are listening. It's YourUntamedTruths.com. You can also find her on Instagram and on Substacks, and check out her book, The Untamed Truths, Reclaiming Self-Sovereignty. And she also has a Circle of Coherence, collaborative, co-creative coaching. So make sure to go to her website, check out more. And again, that's YourUntamedTruths.com, because there's a lot of really good information on there. And Carolyn, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so happy to have you here. And I've got to ask, what brought you to write this book?
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. Yeah, so I always knew that I wanted to write a book someday, that I would, but it was never something where the idea was ripe and the timing was good. And so it was always something that was a maybe someday kind of thing. And then I had the experience actually where I had done so much inner work and thought I was at a certain place in my life and had a bad breakup actually that kind of brought me back to, I don't want to say square one, but I had a wake up call of like, all of this inner work that I've done and all of the understanding that I have and the realizations have brought me to a certain place in my life, but I'm still repeating some of the same patterns. The same old stories are running. And I had to reflect on the relationship and say, how can I say I'm worthy of deep love and I care about my life, and ultimately find myself in a situation where I was making myself smaller, subjugating my own needs, tolerating treatment that didn't match the worthiness that I supposedly believed in. And so when that ended and that cleared, it was kind of two things coming together. One is that I experienced kind of a profound healing, realizing that there were still aspects of my life that were out of alignment. And so in the book, I call it static or interference. It's those old stories, the beliefs, all the ways that you self abandon, self sabotage, all those programs running in the background um, that ultimately are dimming your power. And once I finally saw that and cleared out what was no longer working for me, I just had all this energy available to myself again. And paired with a clarity of like, oh my gosh, I've been doing on this journey for so many years and I'm still repeating these patterns and it ends now. And in that energy, once my life was clear of the static and I had that realization and that alignment, the book idea actually I kind of imagine it like a bubble above my head. It just like arrived. And so it kind of arrived like this fully formed egg. Some people would call it like a download, but it was the sort of culmination of all that I'd learned through mentorship, books, coach training, my own journey, kind of in a framework that then, like, I just started writing. I opened my laptop with that inspiration and that energy there, and I just started writing, and I didn't stop until I was done.
Wow, that's pretty amazing because one of the things is you talked about going back through old patterns and seeing yourself repeat old patterns. And I know I'm going to be honest, I've seen it so much in my life. I'm like, man, I thought I was done with these patterns
Yes.
and they're showing up again. When you hit those old patterns like that, what did you do to help work yourself through them? Did you have methods? What were you doing to work yourself through the old patterns? And when you recognize them, how did you react?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was quite a reckoning. Like you said, you think you're done with certain things and then they pop up. And it was funny because I even had a friend of mine being like, how can you have all this hard-won wisdom and have your life look so great in all these other areas and still find yourself like in a relationship that isn't honoring you and things like that. And so for me, that was a powerful question. I really had to turn within and ask myself, like, what is it that I'm believing
Mm,
that would make this a match for me? It's like, so I got curious about myself. Um, and I really sat with like, what am I actually believing here? And what I
mm,
saw was the problem was that like we think we believe one thing, like I'm abundant, I'm worthy, I love my life, but our actions and choices say another thing. And so it was kind of this moment, like I said, of reckoning of like, yeah, how can I love myself and allow myself to be treated this way? And I kind of did an audit around my life. And for me, my biggest wounds are in my relationship. So it makes sense that that's where the most,
mm.
like the deepest, most kind of enduring stories are. But then I looked around. It's like even some of my friendships that I had, it's like I'm allowing myself to be treated like I don't matter. So which is it? It's like, do I matter? Because if I do, then I have to have certain boundaries, or there are certain people that aren't going to have access to me anymore. And I realized that I was really porous. And so my method, honestly, it seemed like kind of a mess at the time.
I think anytime we go through some of
Yeah.
that self-evaluation, it's a mess at
Yeah.
first.
But it really meant telling myself the truth. And that's a big message of the book. We have to be willing and to have the courage and the honesty to tell ourselves the truth and look closely at where those patterns are still running and the choices that we're making even. And so that's part of where this book came from. It's like those moments where it's like, God, I know better. Why do I keep doing this? I call it kicking the hive. It's like I see a hive swarming with bees and I'm like, wonder what would happen. And it's like, what's going to happen. and you do it anyway. And so it was partly also a process of self-discipline and getting clear on, what matters most to me? What do I stand for? Who am I really? And where are the areas in my life that I'm still self-abandoning, self-sabotaging, letting those old stories run the show? And then I gave myself a lot of little ways to practice coherence. So that's
Mm.
another key concept in the book. It's like that all of my thoughts, my words, my actions, my choices reflect what I hold to be true about myself.
I think that's really important because a lot of times, like you said, we think we're in alignment in one spot, and then the other spot is just going to heck in a handbasket real
Yeah.
fast. And you're going like, but I have all this done, so why is this not working? And with the self-examination, I like what you said, kicking the beehive, kicking the hive. Because a lot of times it's like, well, maybe it'll be different this time.
Yeah.
And I think that's especially relationships. You think, you may have an issue with, say, a personal relationship, but when you start looking at friendships or work relationships, you start seeing some of those same patterns. And as you said you had to put up, different walls or different, I can't think of the word right now.
Boundaries.
The boundaries, yes.
Yeah.
When you put up the boundaries, how did the people react to your boundaries?
Well, it depends. Sometimes I think where the relationship had just sort of play its course, kind of run its course, there was sort of a casual drift. There are other people who obviously are pretty attached to the way you used to be, whether it's the role you used to play for them or it's their own ego playing out. People who will try to renegotiate the boundaries, just keep kind of poke in and see. And I've had to tell people, and it's actually one of the benefits of writing a book like this, because I'm like, look, I'm really trying to live the message of my book. And in the book, I talk about the circle of coherence. And I kind of imagine it like a literal circle. And that's what I defend. Not callously, not rudely, not with unkindness. But, at this point in my life, I've had so much experience of what happens when you let things in that aren't aligned. You start leaking energy. For me, who's like a pretty mental person, when I have something that's out of coherence for me, out of alignment, it really throws me off. Like my mind will go back to it over and over. I'll start rerunning scenarios, and
Mm.
it's just that the cost got to be too high to have certain people in my life. And I always start with grace and kindness. If that doesn't work, move on a little bit. But I've had to be pretty ruthless in what I allow, who and what I allow in and out of my life. And again, that's not, that doesn't necessarily have to mean a nasty confrontation, but it's
Right.
just honoring what has room within me and what doesn't. Because, like I said, the price of that kind of disruption and distraction and aggravation is just too high.
And I agree that, when you, like you said, when you're out of alignment. So are you coherence and alignment, are they somewhat the same or are they a little bit different in your mindset?
I use them largely interchangeably, but what I would say is that um, when you are aligned with what I call your untamed truths, like who you are and what matters most to you, when you're aligned with that, you're in a state of coherence. And again, that's like the way you speak about yourself, the way you show up in the world, the way you think, your actions, your choices, they're all aligned. They're all sending the same signal. And so part of the benefit of that, aside from just, inner peace and not having like the static, muddying your signal, is that become a powerful beacon for what it is that you want.
Mhm.
So I didn't write the book to be like a manifestation book, but that's sort of what it is largely. It's like a clear signal. You can think of it like a radio station or like a signal. I give the example, of like a Bluetooth speaker.
Mhm.
Um, when your signal's strong, it's easy for what's a match to you to lock on to that signal. So it's like compare that to, you bring your phone to another room and the music starts cutting out and you get all that static and noise and it drops off. Compare that to when you're in the room and the signal's strong and it's locked on. That's when the opportunities find you, the people you need to meet show up. You're in the case of writing my book, it's when the energy was there, when the idea was there. I wrote, I don't always like to say this because I don't want to like devalue it, but the book took like I wrote this book in 6 weeks, which is
Wow.
incredibly fast. And I spent another 6 weeks editing it, but because I was in that coherent state and protecting my coherence, it didn't matter how many hours a day I wrote. Like I was never tired. The energy was always there. I woke up every morning with ideas in my head. Sometimes I didn't write it literally necessarily. It's like sometimes I woke up and it was just a later chapter was there and I would write that chapter, and it's like when I needed a word, I would just pause and the word would come. And it was this ease and flow. And so to me, it's like once I've had that experience of what true coherence and alignment feels like, that's what I'm protecting. It's like, because that's where the good, fun stuff really starts happening.
And I think that's really important for people to hear. Like you said, everything went quick. It was easy. It was moving forward and the information was coming to you. And as we're doing this show, there's a lot of people that are out there and they're very connected. And when you say the information was coming to you, where was that coming from? And was it intuitive or what, how do you interact with that information?
Yeah, I'll answer that the best I can because I'm honestly not entirely sure. But I've been a writer my whole life, like from as soon as I could pick up a pen and spell, I've been writing. And especially in high school when I started getting into my English assignments, I actually one day found an assignment called Why I Write, and I talked about my fingers being antennas to a mysterious pool, feeding me words, but unable to be described by it. And, I was a teenager when I wrote that, but I think it's still true. It's, the, it, I use the word, you can use the word download, but it really like it almost just it came more from like inside. It was just everything that had transpired in my life suddenly made sense. Um, and I did an outline, but I don't, it was just one of those things like I just kind of knew. And I didn't question it. And when I needed help or got stuck, I did every morning like call in my angels and guides and my interdimensional writing team. And sometimes I sat back and just listened. And it was like, where do I need to go with this? Or like I'm having trouble describing this. And just sitting back and just listening. And as I'm sure as a highly intuitive connected person, when you ask, the answers come, if you're willing to listen to them. So I don't refer to it as a channeled book, and it's largely rooted in my own personal experience, but it definitely had that experience of being channeled.
I love that because a lot of times we don't know where the information comes from. And that's why for me, I say, they or them or my team, because they're switching, they're changing, you
Hmm.
don't know who it's going to be next time, It's whoever decides to open the door and who
Yep.
you're willing to listen to. And I love the fact where you said, sometimes I just asked and sat back and listened because I think that sometimes people are afraid to ask, afraid what the answers might be, and sometimes that may be just because we really don't want to hear the truth about something that
Right.
we're dealing with. And that brings up something you had talked about, self-abandonment. What is self-abandonment and your idea of self-abandonment, and how do you work through that?
Yeah, so I think of that word as meaning when we know what's true and real and important to us, when we know what we need, what we want, and when we set that aside. And I'm not
Hmm.
talking about, the normal give and take or compromises
Right.
that you might, make in maintaining a relationship, but it's really where maybe you're abandoning your dreams. Like you always wanted to be a painter, or you had a dream of opening your own business, but for whatever reason, you're listening to the voices of other people who say, that's unrealistic. You'll never make money at that, whatever it is, or your own fears of saying, like, well, I don't think I'm good enough at this, or how will I find customers, or whatever it is, in the way that you're talking yourself out of your own dreams and talking yourself out of your own potential and really
Hmm.
talking yourself out of your own happiness. One of the things I talk about sort of in the introduction, that, this book isn't for everyone. You have to decide that you're worthy of your own joy and that your happiness matters, and that, like, your life means something to you. It's like, that's the question, like, what is your life actually worth to you? And when we self-abandon, we're basically saying not that much.
That's something I think is really important for people to hear because a lot of times, and I'm just going to make a generalization. A lot of times, women as a whole will put themselves second and
Mm-hmm.
put everybody else, usually everybody else, in front of them. And I think that's something that people are starting to reevaluate. And like you said, this book isn't for everyone. It's for the ones that really want to look at what's going on in their lives. And like you said, really had to look at your beliefs and what was there and what were your beliefs. And sometimes that's a hard one to look and see like, oh, I didn't think I was worth it. And my team is just coming in, and this is where the manifestation comes in. Where when you're saying, I want this, I want that, I deserve that, but then you look back and you go, but I really don't feel I'm worth it. I don't feel I
Mm-hmm.
can get it. And you start believing the other narrative out there. And that's something to be really mindful of. And I think with your book, it really helps people kind of go through step by step and kind of evaluate and go through beliefs and the beliefs I think are so important. A lot of times we don't even know what beliefs we're carrying until we start doing the self-examination.
Right.
Is that something that you experienced yourself as you started going through it, finding beliefs you didn't realize you had?
Yeah. I give kind of a silly example in the book, but it's like there was one day I was sitting on the couch and I was cold, and I went and grabbed a blanket, and I was still cold after like 15 minutes. And, um, I just realized, I'm like, why the heck won't I just turn on the heat, like turn up the heat, you know? And it's like, and yes, I worked in the energy efficiency industry for a long time, so I got in my head, but it's like, no, I can afford a few more degrees, And so it's little things like that when you start paying attention. And I actually started what I call the coherence log, or really like an incoherence log. And some of it was just little things like that. It's like, okay, which is it? Am I abundant, or am I worried about a high gas bill? Like,
Mm.
and I'm not talking about being reckless, but you start seeing like, and I paused like, should I buy the organic beans or the conventional beans? And it's like, no, I deserve organic, like I'm worthy of poison-free food, And it's like, so all these little ways that the subconscious beliefs, kind of that background static was showing up that I wasn't aware of. But once I started paying attention, I started to see it. And, there are the big things like in how, tolerating how you might allow someone to treat you. But there's also the smaller things. And it's in, it's not even necessarily the smaller things because the more you act against yourself, like don't
Mm.
turn on the heat, you're teaching yourself and training yourself and acclimating yourself to those little self abandonments, those little self sabotages. You're reinforcing the belief a little bit at a time. So when the quote unquote big decisions come, like to leave a relationship or to leave a job or to try something new, those old stories have already primed you to say no,
Mm.
um, or to act against yourself. And so that's part of why I teach in the book that, like, look, you can, it doesn't prescribe what to do. I'm someone, I kind of blew up my life at one point. I got divorced. I quit my corporate career. I moved states, like my dog died. Like I tore my life down to the studs, you know? Yeah. And it was just in a space of like, okay, we are starting from scratch. Um, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Um, there are
That's
some
why you
benefits.
wrote the book, so they
Yes.
didn't have to do
No,
it.
I mean, I don't speak against it though either. It's like, I mean, a
Right.
clean slate can be a good thing, but it's not for, I don't want people blowing up their lives.
Right.
And honestly, change can happen one little thing at a time. And so, and I love now some of my friends who have read the book, they'll call me or I'll get a text from them of like, their little coherent choice that they made of
Mm.
like, my partner was starting the same argument with me again. And I just said, I'm not going to do this. And it's like, congrats, yeah, that's awesome, and they are also developing their own kind of body of evidence. So it's not just the log of like all the little coherent choices that show up in a day, but also what happens once you start making the coherent choices.
Um,
Because it accumulates. And then the more you start acting and aligning with your own truths, the easier it gets and the stronger your signal gets. And you really are like retuning your nervous system, you're rewiring your brain, you're telling yourself that it's safe and it's open for new things to come into your life. And so that's really like a big part of why I wanted to write the book. It helped me go through the process myself, but it's like your life can be whatever you want it to be. And you can take as small or as big a leaps as you want, but it really comes down to just the choices in your day to day life.
I think that's something really important. A lot of people don't think the small choices you're making make a difference, or the small choices don't have any correlation with anything else. But I've got to say, those small choices, you don't even realize it. And it's the choice of, like you said, do I get the organic beans or do I get the other beans? It's the small choice. It seems like
Mm-hmm.
nothing, but when you really examine it, you're going, am I abundant? Am I in lack? Or am I going to go, no, that's okay. And like you said, you're not going to
Yeah.
do crazy, stupid stuff, like, oh, I'm going to buy the Mercedes, you know what I mean? You're you're gonna balance that out, but it's those very small choices you make every day. And my team is saying sometimes it's as simple as, oh, my pen is good, it's good enough, but I really like the other pen. But, do I really need the other pen? But I really like how the new pen feels. It's small little things like that
Yeah.
that you wouldn't think would make a difference. But like you said, it retrains. And I like how you said you're retraining your nervous system because I think that's really important. A lot of times, our first reaction to anything, you don't even know it's there. It's just part of us. And
Hmm.
learning how to redo that. And my team is saying, you're making everybody very conscious of every decision they make, even
Yeah.
small or large. And the smallest decisions actually create the large decisions in your life, and you don't realize it. I love how you've broken that down. And so one of the things is, so I have, you said you in your book, you've got a chapter was naming your life intention, and it was chapter 5, page 76. It says, these exercises help you see what's already there. This isn't about figuring anything out or getting it right. It's about pattern recognition. Trust your
Hmm.
first response and don't overthink it. And I think that's such a really, I think a very powerful statement. And what brought you in? Like you had naming your life intention. Can you kind of explain a little bit more about that naming your life intention?
Sure. So, I'll speak a little bit about the overall framework so people know how it fits in.
Yes.
So, there's kind of three pieces. The first part of the book is all about getting clear on who you are and what matters most. And so I call it your blueprint of being, which is comprised of your sovereign need and sovereign value. And that's just, we could talk about that later if you want, but that's getting at that, like what matters most thing. Now, the
I
life,
think it's very important.
yeah, yeah, it's really helped me to be able to name these things too,
Yes.
to articulate and kind of claim them. But the life intention, I really liked sort of how that came out. It's You can think of it like your purpose, but I specifically didn't use that word because I think some people that gets too narrow and it comes with a lot of baggage. And
Yes.
really, I think our overall purpose, the human purpose, probably the purpose of all intelligence, is to expand and explore and experience. And so you can't miss like, if you exist, your purpose is being fulfilled. But what your life intention is goes off this idea that you have a specialization, or something some kind of theme or curriculum that you came here to master. And it's something that, I try in the book to appeal to broad audience. So I don't necessarily say this as outright as I'm going to in the book, but or right now, but it's like it's what you've been mastering, like lifetime through lifetime through lifetime. It's that common thread, or one of them that you can probably trace across incarnations. Um, and it relates to your sovereign need, but it's really like what you come to know and embody so thoroughly that you transmit it to other people. And
Mhm.
so it's like it's where you become a living transmission. And to say it another way, it's really like the dominant frequency that you're here to
Mhm.
transmit. And so it's literally the intention you have for this life and probably many, many other lives. um, so for example, and it's also, I'll just say, it's like it's kind of where you find meaning and fulfillment. It's what makes life worth to you. So I'll just give an example to kind of make it real for people. So I lay out 6 universal needs for human thriving. Um, and my sovereign need, the one that I'll sacrifice last, the one that is just like um, the most motivating, my most internal driver, is autonomy and agency. So for
Mhm.
me, and that's where the self sovereignty comes in as well. It's like, it's really important to me to be the author of my own life, to feel like I'm in the creative seat, that I'm the creative engine of my life, that I'm responsible for my own decisions, that I'm free to pursue whatever it is I want to pursue. Um, And so the life intention for me that pairs with that, and they're not prescriptive. I give examples, but I encourage people to sort of excavate that from within themselves. And again, it's when you look at it, you see like it's in your astrology chart, it's in your human design, it's in your gene keys, it's in the skills that you've built, the resources that you like. It's been trying to make itself known and getting practice throughout your entire life. But so for me, I call my life intention liberation. It's liberation from every constraint. And so when I do that on a personal level, and really it's liberating myself from my old stories and all the things that I'm
Mm.
doing to hold myself back, I become an example of what's possible for other people. We all do. That's where the personal becomes the collective. And so part of why I believe that I'm here now at this time is to support humanity in liberating itself from every system of control, every limiting belief, every source of fear, of oppression, and finding that self-sovereignty, that freedom from within. And that's the transformation that I'm most interested in is that liberation. And so what that means is it gives me when we know what we're about and what's important to us, that's our map for our coherence. That's what we keep coming back to. Is it aligned? Is this mine? Is this aligned? Does this belong in my circle of coherence or not?
And that's something really important to keep asking the questions because I think a lot of people start going through this and they're like, oh, okay, I figured this out. And then they're not paying attention and keeping their consciousness up there to go, am I seeing it again? Is it happening again? And
Mm-hmm.
what can I do for it? Because I think that's the biggest thing. And there's people out there where as soon as it comes back in, they're like, oh, I didn't do it right, and they give up.
Yep.
And it's knowing that no, you did everything right. It's coming in so you can examine it some more, so you can let go of any other beliefs that are coming out at that point. And you talk about being aware of everything and what I like the freedom, having that freedom, letting go of the constraints of the old stories, because there's so many times we've told ourselves stories and we're still believing it. And these are things that happen even as children or
Mhm.
very young, and we're still telling the same story. When you started seeing those stories, what were ways that you stopped them? They're bringing up. I think it's a, I don't know which one it was. There was I don't remember who it was. Bob Newhart, maybe it was. So I'm dating myself. It was a comedian, and and they had him on like a psychologist on a house, and they're like, just stop it, just stop it, just stop it. Every time they'd say something, just stop doing it. Is that kind of what you had to do though, to just to look at stopping your thoughts?
Um, it's tough. I we built when you've repeated these stories to yourself for so long, they have the appearance of being true. And I've seen this with other people as well. It's like I had one friend, and I tell this story in the book. We were sitting having a glass of wine. I think she was talking about her dating life. And she's like, I know I'm worthy. I know I deserve love, repeating all these things. And then it was like, but I guess I don't get to have what other people have. And I was
Mm.
like, there's the belief. And I was like, you should probably stop believing that. She just looked at me and she's like, how can I stop believing that when everything in my life tells me that it's true? And I was like, I mean, fair point, and so it's tough. And that's really where the mastery comes in. It's like this is a process of repetition. And I'm convinced now that so much of personal growth is just pattern recognition.
Yeah.
So what I did personally, and this didn't happen, I did this over a course of years. I try to make a streamlined process in the book, but it takes some time. Um, but I really started looking at what kept showing up in my life
Mm,
and my own thought patterns, and I dug pretty deep. I don't know that we all need that kind of diagnostic, but for me, it was really helpful to narrow in, like ask myself enough questions over and over in a bunch of different ways and really reflect on my life to understand what like the three or four main beliefs were running the show. And
mm,
so like for me, um, it was like a couple of them were like, I don't matter,
mm.
and um, I forget now. It's the funny thing is once you move past them, you kind of lose the memory and the connection to them. Like they atrophy and they fall away. But I'm
Oh,
still working on like there's still vestiges of the like I don't matter, and it's like I'm not important. Um and so to me, I made a list actually of the core beliefs that like everything else kind of sprouted off from.
mm,
Um, and I go through some of these in the book. Like once you know your sovereign need, there's like core fears that map to those two, and usually some core stories that go along with those. But another one for me, like, it's like I don't matter. And I started also realizing like again that question of like how can I know better and just keep repeating things that aren't in my best interest, like what the f.
yeah.
It's like,
And you wonder why you as a because you know, but
mhm,
yet we still continue to do it. And I'm gonna say you're not the only one. I've done it
yeah,
myself, and it's like, why am I repeating the pattern? Why?
yeah. And one of the things I discovered for myself, and I don't know that this would be true for everyone, but like when I self-sabotage, um, and like hold myself back and hold myself down and do things that lower my frequency or keep me stuck in an old pattern, I never, it's like I never find what I'm actually capable of. I think one of my deepest fears was actually that like I would do everything right. Like I would be everything that I thought I was and still come up short. That there was still something where I'd like arrive at the end of the line and realize like this wasn't it. I I missed the mark. Like I fell short in some way. I'm not limitless. It's like my life intention is around liberation, and like the shadow fear there is that you're actually not free. Like there's something that that has you on the hook. And so the more that you self-sabotage, the farther away that ultimate potential becomes. And you never really have to meet your full self face to face. And it's like, that's a really sad thing, but I think that's what's comfortable to humans. It's like, let me limit myself before I find out that I can't. And so that was part of the mechanism that I realized was going on in my life is like, I was, yeah, self sabotaging so that I'd never find out how good it could get, or how real things were. And so what I ultimately kind of started to shed was like, let's go all in. Let's like, I am limitless, and I'm going to stop hedging my life. And so as an example of that, I published the book. I went through my own process afterwards of like the self-doubt and like the fears and the exposure and just being like, oh God, but it's like, no, I ask that. And again, now I have to live the message of my book. And one of the questions I ask is like, how good can it get? And it's like, what do I want my life to be? And so in a few weeks, I booked a trip to Scotland to just roam around the like castles and the old megaliths, and I have some Scottish heritage. And it's like, no, I had an idea. I want to go on this trip. I'm going to do it. And there's some experience to be had there. It's like, I am the creator. I am actually limitless, and it's time to start living that way. And that's coherence.
I love that. And I love the fact, like you said, we're fearful of what happens if we're really limitless. What happens if everything comes true? What happens if that really happens? And the fear kicks in like, oh, and a lot of times, gotta say, people hold themselves back because,
Mm-hmm.
oh, what if this person doesn't like it? What if
Yeah.
this happens? What if, and we do the what ifs, and I think like you said, it's our own protection mechanism. But really, what if we go all in? What if we're truly limitless? What if, and like you said, how good can it get? What if we explore that part of it instead of going into that human fear that has kept us that way for so very long? And I think more and more people are stepping into that now. And it's because of people like you who have gone through the dirt and
Mm-hmm.
been down into into the trenches and came out the other side and said, it can get better. It can be really, really good. And for you to go, okay, now I'm going to take that trip I've always wanted to do. Now I'm going to do this. I'm going to go all in and see what's there, see why I've been called to it. I think you've been kind of called to that almost your whole life, haven't you? To go to
Mm-hmm.
Scotland because
Yeah.
it's like that's something where it's like you've been wanting to do it for so long. But a lot of times, even with that, sometimes I go, what if it's not as good as we think it is? What if it's going to be a disappointment? And you start bringing these thoughts start coming in, and worthiness and when you do that, like you said, it's coherence. What do I really want? And I love the coherence, bringing in coherence with everything, and the static signal in there, knowing that when you don't have coherence, it's almost like static, like the Bluetooth going through and losing signal. But boy, when you're in the signal, what happens? And
Right.
you've had like writing the book in a short amount of time, being able to do this trip, and not only that. And I'm just gonna say a little background. I do know Carolyn a little bit from before, and she's always landed on her feet, no matter what happens. She's been a person that's always landed on her feet and always came out in a beautiful spot. And that's something, but she's been willing to do that. She's been willing to jump. And I've got to say, it's been awesome to see how far you're coming now and what you're bringing out there for other people. And when you had talked about this book being not necessarily, I mean, here we're a group of, we're metaphysical, it's go tapping into the spiritual. There's a lot of other aspects that we tap into. But there's a lot of people that want some facts, want some direction, and they're not so much in this woo-woo aspect. And I
Mm-hmm.
think your book especially is so, so good for people that are on that aspect too, where they're like, I don't know what to take. I need to have some direction, but I don't want it all going into all this other way. It's a way to bring it down to, I don't want to say the normal because I feel what we're all doing is normal. But I do think that it's bringing it down into a way that's relatable. You can get your head around it. You can find the basics to start with. You can work your way through it. And that's something where you have been making it so easy for people to go through this, finding ways to do it, finding the patterns, finding your self-sovereignty. And self-sovereignty, when you're talking about self-sovereignty and finding your self-sovereignty, did you want to go back and kind of touch on that a little bit more on the self-sovereignty and what that meant for you and what you think it means for others?
Sure. Um, to me, it most comes up is like fear is no longer the master. Your old
Mhm.
stories are no longer the master. It's like you're what takes point in your life is your own truth and your own knowing and what you want. You're making your authenticity sovereign. um, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is what matters. This is why I'm here. And, that's fluid and it's expanding and it's changing. There's a certain bedrock that stays there, but um, it comes back again to that question of like, what is your life worth to you? And the
Mm.
self-sovereign person says, like, it's actually worth everything.
I think that's really important for people to hear. I think you froze a little bit on your end. It might be
Oh,
my end.
okay.
No,
Um,
it's normal for stuff. And I'm just going to say when stuff freezes, it is what it is. But you were saying that it's really what are you worth? What is your life worth?
yeah. And as our mutual mentors, the collective once said, I came across this quote in my notebook not long ago. But what is it worth to you to go higher?
Hmm.
And um, I have that on my fridge actually that I look at every day, and to me, self sovereignty is the path. So many people develop this complicated relationship with their own desires because they've been shamed for it. They've been funneled into their parents' expectations. They believe that they can only make money a certain way. They've made their fear and their sense of safety and security sovereign instead of their own passion and purpose. Um,
And I think that's really important for the passion and the purpose to move forward and knowing it's questioning yourself, what is it worth to go higher? And understanding like and I love that. What is it worth to go higher? Because that is so important. When you really start questioning it, the fears step in. Well, what if this person doesn't like me because I've achieved all my goals? And this is something, the old energy that's been around us. When somebody is successful, other people are like, well, they try to tear them down, they try to bring
mhm.
them down. And now we're moving into an era of that newer energy where we're seeing someone successful and having success in their life and having ease and flow and a lot less drama in their lives. And you got to ask, how much is the drama worth to you?
Right.
Because it's a big price to pay. Like
Yeah.
you said, you're going over and you're reiterating, you're going through what you've said and interactions you've had. So how much is that drama worth? And asking, is it worth it to go the other way? Is it worth it to move yourself past it? And
Hmm.
that's something so important as we go forward. And I know for people out here, it's freezing here and there, so it's all good.
Yeah. Apologize. I'm actually hardwired in, so I don't know.
It's energy. Energy
Yeah.
messes with this stuff. I've done interviews with some and it's just all over the board. So I don't worry about it. It is what it
Yeah.
is. I just ask them, try to hold it a little bit here.
Hmm.
And that brings us the beliefs we have. Beliefs matter. You have a chapter called Why Beliefs Matter. It's chapter 10, and I had on page 142. Here's what makes limiting beliefs so insidious. They don't just shape how you interpret your experiences, they shape what experiences show up in the first place. And your beliefs are commands to the field, the responsive intelligence that organizes reality. Some call it the quantum field, infinite intelligence, universal consciousness, or God. But I love that when I was going through it, and I'm like, that's so important to know what were our beliefs. If you believe everybody's going to treat you like a scapegoat, you're going to have a lot of people treating you that way. And the beliefs are so important. And you talk about the limiting beliefs, and you said they're so insidious that they don't just shape how you interpret your experiences, but they interpret they shape the experiences that show up in the first place. As you've been going through this, how has that changed for you? what you're experiencing.
Yeah, the world around me is just beautiful. It's
Love it.
and it's not to say I don't see what else is going on, observe. I actually pay fairly close attention. To me, I like to be engaged in what's going on, but in terms of how I walk through the world, um, it's like when I need it, just little things too. It's like the other day I had to replace a stringer on my fence,
Mm.
and I was having trouble doing it by myself. And right as I was struggling, someone drove by, stopped his truck, and helped me put it in, and
Love it.
it's like, it's like what's needed shows up almost like before I'm aware of needing it. And the people, this is the big difference that I've noticed in my life. Over the course of a number of years since I started shifting. But it's like it used to be like I'd go to the airport and I'd be, crabby and just like kind of standoffish. And so I'd be around the other people who are complaining about the line and this and that, and like now the people I encounter in my day-to-day life are just so sweet, so helpful, so kind. Um, it's like what makes it into my little bubble is for the most part like really a reflection of what I'm putting out too, and believing that people are good and kind and wanting to treat people with respect and compassion. And so it's this work has not only helped change like how I look at myself, but also just to further see people as running their own curriculum. It's like they all have a life intention. They're all here for a reason. Some people will step into it, some fully, some people won't. But it's like we're all running this curriculum. We're all in this process of mastery. Some of us are taking it different directions and moving at different speeds. None of that makes anyone better or worse. And so it's increased my patience and compassion for what I see. And just knowing that everybody's playing a role in one way or the other, and to not, the same way I learned to not be so critical of myself. It's like once I felt that compassion for self, and even, I mentioned this breakup in the beginning. And it's not like it was terrible the whole time. It was actually one of those things where it's like the mask dropped at the end, and it just uh, kind of blew up in a dramatic, get my attention kind of way. Though,
And that's something really important to know when things blow up. Sometimes they happen in just a crazy way. And for you, you had like everything implode all at the same
yeah,
time, which is like, wow. But as you were going through that, I mean, you went from even changing your job, what you did for work, moving out of that. And as you did that, were you also sometimes sad with what you left behind, or were you happy to leave it behind? And how did you deal with what maybe was hard for you to leave behind?
yeah. No, there were definitely moments of grief where it's like, I'm standing in the barren field of my former life. And it's like, I know I've planted seeds, but they haven't sprouted yet, and I had moments of being like, what have I done? But there was always a deep knowing and self confidence and self trust. Like you said, it's like I have shown courage in my life, and it's always led to a better, when it's been authentic, it's always led to a better thing. And so building that capacity to move through things, to know that I can create my way in or out of any situation that I'm in, and that sometimes I just need to be like clear of something. It's like I said before, I have a tendency, if something's not aligned, I'll stew on it and like ruminate on it and it'll bother me a lot. Um, and so sometimes you just need to just clear it out. But yeah, there were moments where kind of had to grieve the life I didn't have anymore, the marriage I didn't have anymore, the certainty I didn't have anymore. But ultimately, like I think I say in the book, like going back to my old life would be like putting on a wet bathing suit 3 sizes too small. Like, you
That's
know,
true.
I can be sad, but like I would never, like, it's not even a real choice for me. Like, once you have a taste of what's waiting for you with coherence, you won't go back. You really won't. You may have your little slips and like practice things, but you're never going to regress. Once you get a taste, you're not going back.
And I think that's really important because a lot of people they're afraid to make that move because they're going to have to grieve and grieving what you don't have, grieving the life you thought you were going to have and moving forward, but it creates this freedom and like you said you never want to go back. You see it, but you never want to go back. You don't want to put that swimsuit back on
Yeah.
again. But it's also how much different as far as joyful freedom, because you said for you a lot is about sovereignty for yourself. How has that improved for you since you went through this?
Um, I think I'm just like it's more front of mind. So um it's given me clearer language
Mm.
to communicate to myself and also to others. And like I said before, it's like, with the circle of coherence, it's explaining to people, it's like, um, not willing to be treated like I don't matter anymore. And, or it's like I've decided that this is really important to me. And so this is not something that I can say yes to. Or it's just like kind of like the Scotland trip last weekend. I went to a festival um, a few hours away and was just totally present. It was such a beautiful gathering and so full of hope. And to just allow myself the experience of I went alone, so it's like I'm not afraid to just put myself out and see what's waiting for me. And yeah, I had a little bit of like, I don't know, should I go? Should I not go?
Right.
And then once I was there, it's like we were probably 25 people playing drums, a massive bonfire. It was the new moon. And we were just, at one point, there's probably 30 or 40 people dancing around the fire and calling out. And like, it was just a state of pure joy for me, under the stars. And it's like, that's what it would have cost if I had, stayed in my old life. I'd be missing out on experiences like that. Not that I couldn't have gone on a weekend or taken vacation time, but it's a far different experience when your whole life is that, when it's like that isn't the vacation from your normal life, that is your life. And
Yeah.
so, I've in living all these things and through the mentorship, it's like I left my career probably 5 years ago now, I think.
That's
And, I haven't worked for anyone else since. And when it came time to publish this book, I made the decision to start my own publishing company because, again, that was coherent for me. It's like I didn't want to become somebody else's product. I didn't want someone like I didn't want.
I think that's important to know what you do and don't want, and to have that ability to say, I want to do it my way. And I like the fact that you said it's not a vacation from your normal life. This is your life. I think that's something so key. And you've been doing you've been doing things out of the norm for a very long time, and you stepped out and you stepped away from your corporate job and going into the writing the book to having your own business. And that's something that more and more people, when they have their own business, you have the freedom, the autonomy to then be able to enjoy, like you said, this trip you went to go enjoy it. You got to have that experience. The more you pay attention to what you need and your own self-sovereignty, the more these opportunities show up for you and you're able to take them.
Yep.
That's the biggest thing. You're able to take them. And I think that's so important for people to understand. And like you were talking about, to stay in tune with what's going on in the world around us, there's a lot going on right now. But you're not falling into fear or any of that. Instead, you're looking at it differently. And I think this is very helpful for people. What do you do to keep yourself on that other side of it where you're not stepping into the fear, still paying attention to what's going on? But what are some steps you do to not fall into it, not get disheartened? What are some things you do?
Well, I do spend a lot of time in nature.
Mm.
So that helps, to really just ground. And I've also been more engaged in my local community. So, the media wants us hating each other and fighting each other and think, all the division. And I've just leaned into kind of my local community more, showing up for potlucks, mother blessings, helping clean somebody's house, and just kind of feeling what the real world is like, and what it can be, and start kind of anchoring in the world that we're trying to create. That said, I also try to be mindful. I can get on, like sometimes I need to step away from like Twitter, and things like that, and the
Yeah.
emails, and, I'll need to reset a little bit and, step away from my phone. Um, but yeah, I think there's so much to be hopeful for. There's a lot of authentic, good people out there with their heart in the right place. I'm sure all of your listeners are among them. And so I have just so much to be hopeful for. And that's ultimately what I know is going to prevail.
I love that. I too, I feel there's so much hope out there. It's just not listening to the other side of it and really looking around at what's around us and look at, I mean, so many people. You see it not only just in this, like the metaphysical, holistic community, but just as a whole, people are talking about wanting to do generational change, wanting to change where they came from. And I think the people want the change. People are willing to do this. And that's one of the things you're helping people. Like, here's a way to go through it. Here's a way to really examine without having to dig up the past so much. Like I
Yeah.
think, like you said, it doesn't demand that we dig in the dark of our psyche, but we pay attention to the stories we're telling ourselves, and then we can reorient it, what you call our untamed truths. And I think that's the big important thing. So many people are like, oh, then I got to dig in and I got to figure it out. But like you said, when you've moved past certain parts, you forget what the past
Yeah.
even was. And that's a beautiful place to be when you can't even remember, like, oh, there was someone that did something to me, but I can't remember their name anymore. That's a perfect place. It doesn't mean you
Yeah.
have to go digging back to see who it
Right.
was.
Yeah.
And that just means you're changing to such a level. It's not even part of who you are anymore. That's why we feel so different. Like you said, you're all about liberation, everything from the human potential. Your work is there to help people, help themselves. That's what we're here for. That's what you're helping so many people do. And I feel it's so important. And I'm just going to highly suggest other people definitely go to youruuntamedtruths.com and check out everything Carolyn has to offer, but also check out her book because if you're looking for a template, something to dig your teeth into, not the woo-y stuff, but to just go in and like, let's figure this out. Let's find the patterns. You really lay out really good ways for people to look at the patterns, to keep asking the whys. And I think that's so important going forward because so many people do want to change and they're really, I feel my own personal opinion. I don't think there's as much division as they tell us in this
Yeah.
world. There's some amazing people out there. Are you willing to step into finding the amazing people? And I love my team is saying, remember how you had said when you went to the airport, you might have been grumpy before and you were by the grumpy people, but now you're by the other people that are just fun and having fun, excited about the trip. It's a totally different mindset. You're drawing in different people. And, you know, how much is your self-sovereignty worth? How much are you worth? And I feel we're all worth a lot of goodness coming in. And I think it's so important for everyone going forward to know here's a way, an easier way for you to work it through it step by step, like finding the way to move through it without digging in the past, but to really look at the patterns and bring it forward. And I just wanted to ask before we close today, is there something you'd like to cover before we close or something you'd like to bring up before we close?
Well, just I love how you laid that out and about not digging in the dark and the hope. Just returning that every choice is a crossroads.
Mm,
And ultimately, once you know who you are and what matters most, you can change your whole life by just aligning to that in those choices.
mm.
It's like the stories and the patterns and all of that, I think is very helpful to know. Um, but ultimately, all you need to know is what's true for you. And I kind of think of it like the lane assist in a car, where it's like as soon as you start veering out, it brings you back. You start veering out, it brings you back. And so, just to invite people, as they're going through their day and they have a little choice point, you know, is that your authentic desire to do that? Is it aligned? Does it belong in your circle of coherence? And you can let yourself be guided by that. And your life can change dramatically, just one little step at a time. Um, but like you said, it's just you need to decide like your happiness matters, your joy matters, your life is worth it. And to see, how good can it get? It's like that's the question we're all here to ask and to answer and find out. So
I love that. I love that. And I like that, it's one every small choice at a time. One small choice. Because a lot of times I think we bring ourselves down like, oh, I have to change. It's so much to change. And my team is laughing and they're saying, you're also let people know they don't have to blow up their whole life to do it. They can just do little bits at a time.
yep.
But with you, it was what was needed. It was a way for you to move through it quickly. And
Right.
it actually was, even though it felt like a bit, but it really was a small amount of time for you to really pay attention to your self-sovereignty, what was important to you, and really move through it and seeing the benefits, the opportunities, the on the other side. And I think that's, like you said, how good can it get? And it doesn't seem like it in the moment, but keep your eye on the other end of it. It's so
Yeah.
important. But Carolyn, I want to thank you so much for being on here. I think it's so important, and everything you're bringing for people is has so much. I just keep hearing so much goodness in what you've been writing down in this book. And again, the name of the book is Your Untamed Truths: Reclaiming Self-Sovereignty, and that is so important. Oh, you got it right there.
Yeah.
Nice. And you can find this book on your website. Is that correct?
Yes, it's on all major platforms. So I am selling signed copies on my website. It's also available on
On Amazon and Kindle. I know it's available on Amazon and Kindle and some of the other aspects out there, but it's definitely worth going to check out. And then you also have your Circle of Coherence, collaborative and co-creative coaching. Is this for people? How does that work?
Yeah, it'll be the first time we're doing it with the book.
Oh,
Oh, am I? But
yep, you're good. You're good.
okay. um, But yeah, it's basically, I'm finding we actually, a group of local women started a book club around my book, and I'm participating in it, which is really fun. And I'm finding that it's helpful for people to have a group forum to talk about their sovereign needs and kind of work through some of the issues and get real time. What the group coaching is intended for is to kind of learn from each other, like have so many real world examples like the organic beans, like being pulled on the couch, like your ex texting you or whatever, and just get a lot of practice making coherent choices. So it's understanding the concepts, but also getting the support on a real time basis with real world situations.
And I think that's really important, especially now, because a lot of times people think, I'm on my own island. This has only happened to me. And is it really important what bean I take? And when you're bringing up in a group setting, they're like, oh, now I get the meaning behind it. So it is really important. And I keep hearing my team has been saying again and again and again, it's about community and collaboration going forward and finding those people that are going to fit your community. Find the people that you can collaborate with to bring yourself where you need to be and just to understand all of the mechanics behind it. Because when you're in something so deep, and I'm sure you may agree with me on this, when you're in that where everything seems to be imploding, and I'm going to say I've been there. I understand, not to your extent, but but it implodes in different ways in everyone's life. And when you're in that state, a lot of times you can't see the answers. You can't see what's there. So it really helps to have this template to go through and like you said, the co-creative coaching or the collaborative and the circles to be able to go through that as a group are so important. So thank you for all you're bringing. I really appreciate all you're doing, and I know my team is saying it is something so needed for people to have something to grab into and to do it in a way of not everything has to be the woo woo,
Right. Yeah.
It's a way of like let's get to the nuts and bolts of it and let's figure this out. So very, very nice. I really like what you're doing. So I want to encourage everyone go to youruntamedtruths.com and also Instagram and Substack and the book Your Untamed Truths Reclaiming Self-Sovereignty. And then on your website, head on Carolyn's website, check out Circle of Coherence, a collaborative and co-creating coaching, because I think you're going to find out she is very talented.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for this was a wonderful conversation and so good to connect with you. So really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for being here. And because I feel this is so important for people to hear, people to understand. And I really love the fact we were able to reconnect again. So I
Yeah,
appreciate that
likewise.
so much. So thank you, Carolyn. Thank you so much for all of your time and sharing your knowledge. And for all those out there, make sure to watch the next episode of Edge Talk Radio. It's on the first and third Wednesdays of the month at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if you've missed any past episodes, no worries. You can listen to the downloadable podcast or you can watch the interview on either my YouTube channel or Edge Magazine's YouTube channel. And I want to thank each and every one of you. Thank you so much for listening, expanding, and amplifying our universe together. Have an absolutely amazing day. Thank you.